Well, it is day 4 of the Nepal tragedy where the death toll has now crossed the 4,300 mark with more than 8,000 others injured. The Nepal government today announced 3-day national mourning in wake of the devastation. Even as the rescue operations intensify, crisis looms with an acute shortage of food, water, electricity and medicine, while thousands still sleeping out in the open fearing another quake. The Nepal government has now put forth a quake helpline, the number of which is 1234. On the other hand, India's Operation Maitri continues in full swing with Indian Air Force choppers speeding up rescue operations to remote areas. Nearly 5,400 Indians have been evacuated from Nepal by the Indian Air Force. The Indian Army doctors providing their first comprehensive health report, which becomes critical at this hour as fear of an epidemic loom large. Nepal Health Ministry has sounded an epidemic alert. Out of 60 districts affected by the earthquake, 9 have been declared highly affected areas, including Sindhupal Chowk, Kathmandu, Nuwakot, Bakattapur, Gorkha, Lalitpur and Rasuwa. Hundreds of people are still trapped under rubble in remote mountainous areas. I want to cut across right now to our managing editor, Rahul Kamal, who's right now in Nepal getting us the very latest coming in terms of rescue and relief. Rahul, we just aired that news report that you filed of the NDRF team on that rescue operation of that 5-story building. Can you just give us a sense of what you're witnessing around you at this point of time? Because now time is clearly running out in terms of actually pulling out anyone alive from the debris.
Preeti, the bad news is, if our camera person can just zoom up, it started to rain. It's heavily overcast now and it is raining. Not quite as hard just now. A few minutes before now it was raining even harder. This is severely impacting rescue efforts because it impacts helicopter sorties, it impacts your ability to land because it makes the ground soft, and it also impacts the kind of operation that we were a part of, the NDRF operation. Now, some of those buildings that you're seeing on your screen right now, which were filmed by us, we entered along with the NDRF teams in the holes that they dug to go into these buildings. Now, those buildings, Preeti, are very, very brittle. They're very weak. And each time there's a tremor or an aftershock, you can actually feel the building shake. And that really concerned me because there's a high possibility, if there is a big aftershock, that that building could go under. So the NDRF team really risking their lives and limbs quite literally by going out in such inclement weather, trying to pull out whoever they can find. The bad news, though, is that this is day 4 post the earthquake, and it now seems as if there's a very little possibility of trying to find someone alive. We spoke to several officials in the NDRF. They say that because of the fact that it's been so many days, because of the fact that the person, whoever it may be, is without food, without water, it's highly unlikely that someone would have survived. But that's why there are miracle stories, there are miracle escapes. But barring that, this is now an effort to try and pull out dead bodies. Somewhere in the vicinity of that area where we were, in one of those floors, it was a mall. So in one of the floors below us, you could actually smell the dead bodies, which is why they have those canines, and we filmed the dog squad in action, and we'll show that to our viewers later in the afternoon. Those dogs are very well trained to be, and they were constantly barking, indicating the very high possibility of there being dead bodies somewhere in that rubble. So this weather is really bad news because it impacts the ability of transport aircraft to come into Kathmandu with relief supplies. It impacts the ability of rescue helicopters to be able to go to the far-flung places where help is really required. And it also impacts rescue operations and efforts here in Kathmandu, Preeti.
Rahul, the Nepalese Prime Minister had said that we're looking at a tragedy at a scale of somewhere about 10,000 deaths. Right now, the official figure stands at 4,250. You've been in Kathmandu. You've been filing reports from Kathmandu. Our reporters are spread out, getting us the latest from, far-flung parts as well. But, if you have to actually sum it up for us, what kind of tragedy are we actually looking at?
So, Preeti, it's impossible to put a number to the final fatality list, the number, because several villages, as we were flying out from Kathmandu to remote areas where it takes almost 6 hours to get to by road, about 30 minutes by chopper, we saw dozens of villages completely smashed as a consequence of the earthquake. Here you can see some of the buildings have been impacted, some walls have fallen apart, some of the older structures have collapsed. The hotel where we are, my room has a a big crack in it, but those are small in comparison with the damage that has been witnessed in the villages. There, village after village completely destroyed. And you know, where these rescue sorties are going, Preeti, is where some young person from that village has been able to come to the district headquarters, inform the police, inform the local government that, you know, there are people alive who are stuck, who are injured, who need help. In several villages, no one's been able to come down. From those villages, there is still no word at all. So the Prime Minister is absolutely right that 4,200 is nowhere close to the final death toll. That death toll is rising, and this weather makes things that much tougher because bodies will start rotting, they'll start stinking.
And that's where the fear of epidemic comes in, Rahul, doesn't it?
And creates the possibility of mass epidemic. One of the things that I want to stress, Preeti, is what Nepal really needs, because there's so many countries, so many private organizations, all of them organizing their own relief and rescue efforts. Most of them are ending up duplicating each other. I had a lengthy conversation. I went to the National Emergency Control Center here at the Ministry of Home Affairs in Kathmandu. Their officials are trying to send this word out through us to the outside world that please ask us what is it that we need. We need orthopedic doctors. We need tents, we need medicines, we need bottled water, we need experts on sanitation and sewerage. Ask us what we need, send us the right kind of relief material that will prove useful. In their effort to try and be of use, everyone's sending the same basic material, which now there's an oversupply of, and they don't really know how to push it out in quick time. It happened in Uttarakhand as well, where what you really need is something that the district administration, the people on the ground, are best placed to tell you. Once you've found that out, then for private bodies to get involved, for governments to get involved, to ensure that what ends up reaching these people is what they need, not what they already have.
You know, Rahul, interesting point that you brought out there, because back here in India, there are many independent people who are trying to mobilize support, clearly, you know, impacted by what is taking place in Nepal there. But what do you reckon? What is the official word? Because, you know, we are getting a lot of calls in the network as well as how people can actually add, you know, and help the tragedy which is unfolding in Nepal. What's the official word? Should people just wait and watch and then let an official word come out by the Nepalese government on what is needed instead of mobilizing support and getting in stuff which is actually going to go waste?
You know, my own sense after speaking to officials in the Nepalese government, officials in the Indian Air Force, Indian government officials, the army and the Nepalese police, is that it's best to try and route your supplies through one of the big agencies. The Prime Minister here in Nepal is running a relief fund. The Indian government is sending relief material. There are big private agencies if you don't want to go through the government. If you were to route it through one of the bigger agencies, the chances of the relief and rescue material reaching the right place is that much better. Because if you just send, you know, if friends get together or small bodies get together, send some clothes or blankets, there's a high possibility that they could end up in one of the airports just lying there with no one to take them, or they don't end up going to the most affected places or the most affected people. So given how big the earthquake is and given how bad connectivity, especially mobile road connectivity to the far-flung areas which need this help the most, it's best to try and route this through either the Nepalese government or the Indian government or one of the big private agencies. They're the ones who have the resources and the wherewithal to take this rescue effort to the last point. Once, of course, roads have been rebuilt, mobile connectivity fully restored, then if you want to take up a village or a particular house or sponsor someone's education, all of that is possible. But at this stage, my own sense is, if you're trying to route this through one of the big bodies of the government, the chances of your help reaching its intended beneficiaries or the intended people is much higher than trying to do this yourself.
You know, Rahul, I'm just reading the latest updates which have been sent by, you know, our colleagues who are with you right now in Nepal. Official word coming in terms of epidemic, a real present threat of, you know, epidemic right now, especially in those 6 districts that we are looking at right now, which are badly affected.
That's true, Preeti, because, you know, in so many villages where we travel, there are dead bodies lying around. Here in Kathmandu, there's still an effort to try and rescue those people who are there, try and bring out those dead bodies. But in the villages, they don't have access to this kind of equipment. So if a lot of construction material has come down, it's very difficult for the villagers with the basic equipment that they have to be able to pull these dead bodies out. That means that there are dead bodies by the dozens lying around, they're rotting, they're smelly, you can feel that stench in the air. So all those bodies which were out in the open, they've already more or less been cremated. But there are people whose dead bodies are lying around. That creates a very real possibility of mass epidemic. Add to that the fear, where the bodies now start rotting, especially if you haven't been able to pull them out. You know, your bodies start rotting, which means that animals can come and attack them, start nibbling off it, which makes rodents will attack those bodies. That really does create that problem. Add to this the other problem, that sewage and sanitation facilities for large parts, especially in the older parts of Kathmandu. Let's just move in, it's raining very heavily, our cameras will get wet. In the older parts of Kathmandu, in the older city area, those sewage and sanitation facilities completely not functional. The sewage lines completely overflowing, and that really also creates the possibility of a mass epidemic.
Right.
Those are real challenges that the government in Nepal is
Rahul,
trying to
quickly
deal with.
before we let you go, have things improved at the Kathmandu airport?
No, Kathmandu airport is better in the sense that there are more flights taking off, at least before the weather packed up just a short while before now. But it's not, it's a small airport, and suddenly you've got all these big international cargoes coming in. And remember, when these cargo flights come in, they take a lot of time to be able to evacuate, to be able to unload all the equipment, the relief material, the supply. It takes a lot of time to bring them down. So it's taking that time. In that time, the parking bays, the airport parking bays are very few. So those are occupied. And you've got aircraft just circling in the air. You can see them go round and round right above the Kathmandu airspace. They're unable to land. Some flights even got cancelled. People had to go back. Some Indian flights got cancelled. Some Indian Air Force sorties were not able to land. That's the real problem. It's a big capacity constraint.
Okay.
Once they land, they don't know who it's supposed to be handed over to. So therefore, it takes that much more time. So, because there's so many different agencies working together, because Nepal hasn't dealt with a calamity as big as this, there are big operational problems. And that's really impacting operations also at the Kathmandu airport.
All right, Rahul, we're going to keep coming back to you and all our colleagues right now in Nepal, getting us the very latest developments coming in from